Hi everyone, my name's Sarah Beth, and I recently finished reading The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, and other short stories. My rendition has quite a few that I will also go over. The Time Machine itself was published in 1895 and is about 115 pages. The rest of the short stories in this are 30 or less pages, and it goes out to only about, 300 pages. It's not a very long book or long read. So, H.G. Wells, the father of science fiction. You have to remember he comes from a different time. There is a short story in here, and even the Time Machine that can get a little on the racist side. Because in the Time Machine, it does actually split off into the haves and the have-nots into the future, where the haves become these childish, dumb creatures that, just live in the ruins of what was. And they don't have a very complicated language, and they're just children. They love to splash and play in water and dance and pick flowers. They're a very happy race, but they don't really contribute anything because they don't need to. Their life is fulfilling and easy. And then you have the have-nots, which are almost demon creatures. They're spiders, and they live in, subterranean parts of the world, and they have to have vents, but they are more intellectually advanced just because they have to out of need. They need that air. They need to work the machines in order to live underground. But it invokes fear on the little people, not the little people, but the haves, which they've actually grown to be, through evolution, to be a lot shorter than the general man, and that is spoken upon in the novel. I don't appreciate how H.G. Wells kind of disregarded anything in the future as being almost inferior. He does definitely kill a lot of beings and doesn't really think twice about it. He does in a sense of he doesn't like the way that the bone squishes and feels bad about that, but not about the fact that he's murdering a creature, and he does a bit of that in the novel. There's a lot of murder and martyrdom and general mayhem. These stories are dark, all of his stories. So if you like Edgar Allan Poe, I think you'll actually really like most of these stories. Even if you don't like science fiction, I would say they're heavier on the dark genre than they are on the science fiction novel. But best short story from here is The Cone, which is about an industry tycoon who essentially catches his wife cheating with somebody that's working under him, and they're about to leave him. Actually, just leave. So he goes on a walk with that man because he's his underling and says, "Oh, let's talk about the beauty of my mills." But it's very dark. I won't ruin anything, even though it's a short book and published, 200 years ago. I will say one story which was awful was The Land of the Ironclads. I don't believe H.G. Wells should write military fights, I should say. I think that it was essentially the equivalent of watching shaky cam but reading it. It just didn't stay on one act long enough for you to really become invested into what was happening during the fights. You get the general idea of what happened and what was created in the science fiction element, but I'm going to say it wasn't done very well. I think there's so many better military novels out there, from All Quiet on the Western Front. I mean, I love Catch-22. That might not be considered military per se, but it is within the realm. So not to say I don't like military works, but I just don't think that his was well done. And it was a short story as well, so maybe if he had more time to really go into his themes and had time to explain, he would have done so better. I don't like short stories because I don't feel that you can really delve beneath the surface of most of the topics you're trying to cover. I think his ideas are novel. I love how he creates something new and genuine that you wouldn't really think of on your own, and they're not exactly outside the realm of what you think is possible. You're not having these crazy alien invasions, at least not in these stories in this book. It's very much believable, and the science that you see is practical for the time. Because even in the Land of the Ironclads, what people create is essentially just an armored tank. And for him, that was new. And it was just well done, tastefully created in the form of practicality. You know, it wasn't outside the realm of belief. I didn't have to suspend what I thought was real to read most of these books. You do a little bit, but in a sense, even the Time Machine talks about how he's just trying to travel through the fourth dimension. It's not really keeping something new. He talks about how humans itself, we can move in 3 dimensions, but we've always had trouble going in, up, and not necessarily down, but we've needed help by planes and, balloons, but we could eventually move up more than we could just jump vertically. And he says time is the same thing. You can move forward in that dimension with the help of a machine, which is a very interesting concept, which I don't necessarily think about. You know that the fourth dimension is time, but you don't think about how we've always struggled moving through the different dimensions. So it's interesting. I would say if you love short stories, go for it, but I just don't think that the author has enough time to really develop his characters. There's not much to be said for the characters. The plots in themselves, there's not much to be said. I mean, even the Time Machine I felt was a little bit too cyclical for my taste. You just can't go very far in these shorter stories. So this is not going to be a recommendation from me. Personally, I think that if you like science fiction, maybe his other works are better, which I will read in time. My next book that I'm going to read, I believe, is going to be The Island of Dr. Moreau. So keep a lookout for that. And thanks for watching my review. Hope you have a good day. Bye.